media is ready for its Oscar moment, its red carpet moment today at 9:30. But like the rest of America, I actually can't watch the press conference because not knowing about when William Barr was going to do his press conference, I actually scheduled a meeting at work for 9:30. So like most of you, I'll probably be hearing about it on the radio or maybe like listening to the press conference later. And that really is the encapsulating theme of what's going to be the end of this whole sorry saga of Bob Mueller. Mueller time! Mueller time is over. And it's really fascinating that you have people like David Corn continuing to promote their delusion that Donald Trump somehow colluded without any trace of evidence. This person that they consider to be this total idiot, this intellectual midget, they think that Donald Trump is one of the dumbest people that's ever been in the public eye. And yet, for some reason, he's able to conceal and obfuscate and obscure literally the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus in the world, the NSA, CIA, FBI, etc. And they can't pin a single tangible piece of evidence on him. So you have this from USA Today. By the way, there's this report that apparently Ivanka Trump was offered the World Bank chief job. If that's true, and I think she actually admitted to it, that is kind of retarded. I think you, even if you're a Trump supporter, you might have to admit that. Because Ivanka Trump isn't exactly World Bank manager material. But either way, it says here Democrats are in an uproar over Attorney General William Barr's handling of the highly anticipated report by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, demanding that he cancels a planned news conference on Thursday about Mueller's findings before actually releasing the report to the public. So they want transparency, but they don't want William Barr to come and make statements publicly. And by the way, he's also doing it with Rod Rosenstein, who is one of the people who signed off on FISA warrants for the Justice Department to continue surveillance on a number of Trump associates. I believe the main person concerned was Carter Page. So they seem to have a problem with the Attorney General and his deputy coming out and speaking about the Mueller report prior to its release. For weeks, House Democrats have criticized Barr's handling of the report, but those critiques intensified significantly on Wednesday, one day before the Justice Department is set to release a redacted version of the 400-page report to the public. Once again, Barr wants to shape the public's perception of the report. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, wrote on Twitter, "This is not justice, just PR." In a joint statement, Democratic House chairs called Barr's news conference unnecessary and inappropriate and called for release of the full report. That's what's really ironic. When they were the minority in Congress, when they were, ranking members, Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell and all of their cohorts, Mark Warner of Virginia, the senator, to a lesser extent, they were in front of the camera literally all the time, going on the news, making allegations and, also suggesting things without actually... there's a way people do things when they want a certain environment to prevail, where they suggest that things may happen, but they don't fully commit to them. And in many, I believe that's what's called a whispering campaign. In a joint statement, okay, I already read that part. These new actions by the Attorney General reinforce our concern that he is acting to protect President Trump, the statement says. He should let the full report speak for itself. The Attorney General should cancel the press conference and provide the full report to Congress, as we have requested. The statement continues, with the special counsel's fact-gathering work concluded, It is now Congress's responsibility to assess the findings and evidence and proceed accordingly. Barr and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein will hold news conference at 9:30 a.m. Eastern District Time. Justice Department spokeswoman Carrie Kupek said. The report is expected to go to Congress between 11 a.m. and noon Eastern Time and likely will be released to the public around the same time. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi railed against the decision and pointed to a New York Times report indicating that justice officials had briefed the White House on the contents of the report in advance of its public release. White House and justice officials declined to comment on the Times account. So I want to ask the question, who gives a shit if Justice Department officials briefed the White House when we already know that Mueller didn't recommend any further indictments? Who cares? Who cares? So they're trying to make this seem as if the Mueller report's release is being coordinated in order to protect Donald Trump, when in reality the report itself can't do much. What are you supposed to do when there's no recommended indictments? Allegedly, there is the most damaging thing that people can make a case for is that some of the tangential charges have been farmed out to the Southern District of New York, which is, of course, the district where Trump's business is, the Trump Organization. So that still doesn't have anything to do with the report, because any prosecutions that could arise from the Southern District of New York aren't contained in the report. So, again, who cares? Who gives a shit? And then you have, this is from John Solomon, who's actually a very...
Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report is set to...
He's a very good reporter for The Hill. And he said, soon the dust will settle from Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report, and Americans will have a fuller understanding of why prosecutors concluded there wasn't evidence to establish that Donald Trump and Russia colluded to hijack the 2016 election. At that point, many voters, exhausted by the fizzling of a 2-year scandal, once billed as the next Watergate, will want to move on like a foodie from an empty calorie shake. But a very important second phase of this drama is about to begin, as Attorney General William Barr, Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz, and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham put the Russian collusion investigators under investigation. Their work will be and must be far more than just a political boomerang. It must answer, in balanced terms, whether the FBI was warranted in using the most awesome powers in the U.S. intelligence arsenal to spy on Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's campaign at the end of the 2016 election. Investigators must determine with neutrality whether the Bureau improperly colluded with paid agents of Democratic rival Hillary Clinton's campaign, Fusion GPS, and its British operative Christopher Steele, and then tried to hide those political ties and other evidence from the nation's secret intelligence court. For the likes of FBI cast-offs James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and Peter Strzok, or Obama-era intelligence bosses John Brennan and James Clapper, there will be the additional uncomfortable reality through testimony, TV appearances, for-profit books, and leaks turn out to be as unsubstantiated as a Loch Ness Monster. By the way, I think the Loch Ness Monster actually has more evidence than this. The process of meting out accountability has begun. Horowitz, my sources tell me, has interviewed between 50 and 100 witnesses in his exhaustive probe. Graham and his predecessor as Judiciary Chairman, Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, laid out the most important investigative issues they saw in a letter last year. This month, former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, Republican of California, sent a letter to DOJ identifying 8 potential criminal referrals. His committee last year also released a memo on abuses of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that may have occurred during the Russia probe. And President Trump is readying an order to declassify 5 key buckets of documents on alleged FBI abuses. So this is what the Democrats are really, they should really be pissed about. And the thing is that they can't complain about it because it would expose that they don't really care about transparency. if they think that releasing the full report is so important, even though the report itself doesn't recommend any further indictments, then why would they also object to the declassification of all of these key documents? It says, my sources agree these 10 questions are the most important to be answered in the forthcoming probes. 1, when did the FBI first learn that Steele's dossier was funded by the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party and written by a partisan who, by his own admission, was desperate to defeat Trump? How much evidence of innocence did the FBI possess against 2 of its early targets, Trump campaign advisors George Papadopoulos and Carter Page? 3, why was the Steele dossier used as primary evidence in the FISA warrant against Page when it had not been corroborated? 4, why were Steele's biases and his ties to the Clinton campaign, as well as his evidence of innocence and flaws in the FISA evidence, never disclosed to the FISA court as required by law and court practice? 5, why did FBI and U.S. intelligence officials leak stories about evidence in the emerging Russia probe before they corroborated collusion, and were any of those leaks designed to create evidence that could be cited in the courts of law and public opinion to justify the continuation of a flawed investigation? 6, did Comey improperly handle classified information when he distributed memos of his private conversations with Trump to his lawyers and a friend in order to leak that he hoped would cause the appointment of a special counsel after his firing as FBI director? 7, did the CIA, FBI, or Obama White House engage in activities such as the activation of intelligence sources or electronic surveillance before the opening of an official counterintelligence investigation against the Trump campaign on July 31st, 2016? 8, did U.S. intelligence, the FBI, or the Obama administration use or encourage friendly spy agencies in Great Britain, Australia, Ukraine, Italy, or elsewhere to gather evidence on the Trump campaign, leak evidence, or get around U.S. restrictions on spying on Americans? 9, did the CIA or Obama intelligence apparatus try to lure or pressure the FBI into opening a Trump collusion probe or acknowledge its existence before the election? Text messages between alleged FBI lovebirds Strzok and Page raised concerns about pressure from the White House, the agency BS game, DOJ leaks, and the need for an FBI insurance policy. And as Strzok texted at one point in August 2016, quoting a colleague, the White House is running this. 10, did any FBI agents, intelligence officials, or other key players in the probe provide a false testimony to Congress? McCabe already has been singled out by the Inspector General for lying about a media leak to an internal DOJ probe, and evidence emerged this year that calls into question Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson's testimony about his contacts with Orr. So I want people to understand really what the core problem is. When you have the FISA court, which was I've heard a lot about really why the FISA court functions as it is. It used to be that back in the 60s and 70s, the FBI would just wiretap people willy-nilly, whatever, tap that ass. Tap that ass. That's under Hoover, the FBI basically did whatever the hell it wanted. And as part of the church committee hearings and other attempts to reform the intelligence community during the 70s, the FBI was forced to go to the Foreign Intelligence and Surveillance Court, the FISA courts, through the FISA Act, and basically present to a judge evidence that they needed to open a wiretap into a person for contact with a foreign entity, and the judge would grant that request based on the merit of that evidence. Now, what's the problem here? Of course, we're relying on the dependability of the intelligence agencies complying with the law, actually presenting evidence of a crime that could be committed. But notice what's missing. The target can't have a defense lawyer present, because otherwise, what would be the point of the surveillance, right? It's almost the same as when the FBI decides to do surveillance on an organized crime figure. Now, of course, we can't expect the FBI to notify a defense attorney for somebody who is, a member of a triad organization, or let's say, one of the Mexican drug cartels, or the Chicago outfit. We're not going to have the FBI notify their attorney that they're being surveilled, and then they'll be like, oh, so I guess we'll just stop doing our crimes now that we're being we're being surveilled. So, of course, nobody ever found that there was evidence of Donald Trump meeting with Russian agents. The only evidence that was supposedly found was that Carter Page had at one point prior to or I think it was in 2013, he traveled to Russia to I believe speak at a conference, and of course he had some business ties in Russia, and he'd been hired as a consultant on the Trump foreign policy team. And that was the extent of the ties that justified a FISA warrant. And think about that. When you're forming a foreign policy team, you're probably hiring people that would generally have very deep understandings of the areas where they're being hired to consult. If for example, if you had for example, like Gary Johnson had a lot of people for whatever reason from Mexico on his campaign. He even had Juan Hernandez, who was a former advisor to the president of Mexico, Vicente Fox. He had him on his campaign. Does that mean that Gary Johnson should have been investigated for collusion with Mexico? No, I think it was not the best strategy, to be honest with you. Even though the person in question was, I have no problem with him, but the fact is that this collusion investigation was a disgrace, and at 9:30 today, this press conference, the reason that the journalists and the Democratic committee leaders and all of these people who have for 2 years promoted this fake religion of Russian collusion, the reason that they have such an objection is not because what they think will be obstructed, what they think will be hidden, but what they think will be exposed and the questions that will be answered. So I will be talking to you guys sometime in the evening. It's actually a pretty busy day for me. But yeah, I think that this is finally a time for closure with regards to the supposed Russian collusion. But beyond the closure, like John Solomon is saying, we have to address all of the skeletons in the closet from these intelligence agencies that have run buck wild. So please, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also subscribe to me on BitChute. There's a problem with BitChute lately. They're not really they're not mirroring the videos, but still, so you should subscribe to me so that at least you have a source for my videos in case they're taken down. Also on Minds.com at Chef Leopard and on Gab at Starscream85. And I'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy your Thursday.